Welcome to the Education Corner, a podcast by Education Choices magazine.
Education Corner podcast would like to welcome Mrs. Nina Kingsmill Moore, Head Elect at Papplewick School in Berkshire. Papplewick is an independent day, weekly and full boarding preparatory school for boys aged between 6 and 13 years old. With around 210 pupils, the school celebrates individuality and provides a broad range of both academic and extracurricular activities for students. Small class sizes ensure each individual is seen, and the benefits of this are evident, with boys progressing to top independent schools across the country and many achieving scholarships. Nina will join Papplewick as head from September 2026, having previously held headships at Wetherby Preparatory School and Glendower School, as well as working as deputy head at Lambrook School on Wetherby Notting Hill. Nina brings a wealth of knowledge and experience from leading a range of schools, including through the COVID pandemic. It's lovely to have you with us.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction.
Firstly, could you tell us more about your background and how you came to your role at Papplewick?
Yes, so education has always been, in my blood. I've always wanted to work, started off obviously in the classroom teaching, predominantly in a pre-prep, but also in prep schools as well. And it was just, over the years, looking at how heads were doing an incredible job and thinking, maybe one day I could do that. So that's, the sort of personal journey. The schools that I've been at, I've been so incredibly fortunate to learn from, brilliant heads and really take that passion through. So like you say, when I went into my first headship at Glendower, I was really excited. That's an all-girls school, really, really excited to start. We had that little tiny blip in history called COVID-19, which was an interesting way to start a headship. But, if you can lead through a crisis, you can lead through anything. And I think because we were all in it together, whether you'd been ahead for, 20 years or 2 terms, we were all in it together. So there was an incredible camaraderie there. I then moved on to Wetherby Prep. So obviously went from all girls to all boys. And had a fantastic time at Wetherby Prep. People always ask, how do you lead in a boys' school if you're a female, a woman leading? And you lead in the way that is instinctive to you. And the boys are absolutely incredible. I've obviously worked in co-ed schools as well, so had boys there with me. And I think education is education. If you're passionate about it, if you're passionate about leading through it, then you can take any school to the next step. And yeah, I've had the most amazing career so far, but I'm not done yet. So Papplewick, when the role came up, funny enough, I've lived in Berkshire, for the last 16 years, but commuted up to London to do my, work. So obviously my professional life has been in London, but personal life has been in Berkshire. And Papplewick is a school that I have known for many, many years. And Lambrook School, where I was deputy head and also ran the pre-prep, was very close to it. So it's a school that, I've had an eye on for all these years. And just about 3 months before I saw the advertisement for Papplewick, I was driving past with my husband and I said, if that headship ever came up, I would love to go for that. But thinking that Tom Bunbury has been at the school for 23 years, I didn't imagine it was going to be coming up anytime soon. And actually it did. And I applied and here I am. Can't wait to start.
I bet you're bursting to get in. Your predecessor at Papplewick, Tom Bunbury, describes himself. He says, we know that boys of this age have a natural spark and individuality about them. And I believe these are qualities that should be celebrated throughout their time at the prep school. How does life at Papplewick embrace this spark and nurture these qualities?
what Tom Bunbury said there is absolutely spot on. That's exactly what happens at Papplewick. And, people always say when you're going for a headship, it's not just about them choosing you, it's about you choosing the school. And that's exactly what I saw in action when I went to the school. Those boys are, it's almost like they are in this amazing educational sort of organization, but they are having so much fun. And yet, if you look at the destination results, you realize, wow, these are boys who are, really doing incredible things. So there's this wonderful heady balance between, boys being allowed to be boys, getting muddy knees, climbing trees, you're getting stuck in. I mean, if you go to Papplewick and please do come along. I'd love you to come and visit us there. There are skateboards all over the grounds. There are scooters. It is boys' paradise. It really, really is. And because they're so happy and because they are known as individuals, when I walk around the school and I've been taken around, every teacher is talking to the boys and calling them by name. That's so important because if they feel like they are known and heard really, and their learning is, really encouraged, but equally they're encouraged to play as well. It's the absolute sweet spot of education. So for me to find a school like this, that was happy to have me as their next head, it honestly is a dream come true. I cannot tell you how excited I am for September.
And I imagine the parents will be too. Um, when we last spoke on this podcast, you had just taken on your role as head at Weatherby Prep, and you shared we want to produce boys who are confident, who are interested in and curious about the world around them, and actually want to go and make a difference. How do you plan to continue the work that you've been doing already in London towards this goal in your new role? And what made you feel that Papplewick was a good fit for working towards this aim?
All of those things are absolutely vital. I really, really believe that. And that's something that I, work really hard to try and develop in the boys. Curiosity is key in learning. If you're not curious, then, you don't have any self-motivation. And it's all very well, we talk about this sort of extrinsic, us trying to encourage boys to do things differently, but it has to come from within. And if we can spark that interest, if we can really find what it is that makes that little boy's eyes twinkle when he, hears conversations about, certain areas, it might be science, it might be art, it could be anything, then we really, really have the sort of wheels in motion for him to learn. I'm deeply passionate about that. And funny enough, it was open morning just this Saturday gone, and I was speaking to a prospective parent there, and I was sort of recounting when I was in the classroom teaching a child, and she said, "Well, you're always going to have boys who possibly you can't reach," and I said, and I disagree with that. I think that every child, and obviously in Papplewick's case, it's boys, every child has something about them that you can spark that curiosity over. And they wouldn't necessarily know, but, as a teacher, it's our role to find those things and maybe tailor the lessons towards, if you've got one child in particular who's not, necessarily giving and engaging in the lessons, then really tailor the learning around that boy. Because 9 times out of 10, there's probably at least 15 other boys in the class who are really interested in that as well. But if you can get that child on that learning path, then we are on, such a good trajectory. So that's absolutely key. Papplewick do that brilliantly. They've got all these wonderful clubs and different things that they do, which really help to bring boys into a subject in a slightly different way. So, for example, there's Snake Club. And the boys, they may not realize that they're learning all about science and biology and, all of those things, but they really are. And they're learning how to care for, another creature, really. There's, what was it, a bearded dragon I was holding the other day as well. And it's all these things that give the boys that excitement for learning, which is absolutely key and in them really, sort of getting that, as I say, that self-motivation. So that's, I think, the most important thing. Look, obviously you learn so much more the schools that you've been part of through your career. What we were doing at Weatherby still continues there and is really exciting. And I just hope to be able to bring that. Well, I know that will definitely happen when I come across to Papplewick.
And happy children do well.
Mm.
And Papplewick offers a wide range of co-curricular activities, with all the students having Thursday afternoons off timetable to explore different activities within the school day. Could you tell us more about this co-curricular offering and how it benefits the boys at Papplewick?
Absolutely. Yeah, so that's really key. I think those Thursday afternoons are so eagerly anticipated, and that there is a really wide range. So you've got, sort of things that you would imagine, squash, swimming, sort of multi-sports, those kinds of things. So quite a lot of sporting activities, which really help those boys who love to get out there and get a bit muddy, and really enjoy themselves. But then you've got slightly sort of wider the clubs as well. So things like Parliamentary Debate Club, really getting those boys who just love that debate, love being able to, debate something that wouldn't necessarily be part of their school day, but gives them that wider thinking and really challenges the thinking. We've got Bibliomaniacs Club as well, which is really, really unique. So there's an incredible library of books that, books from the past. So what they do is they go in and they really spend time looking at these books, really getting underneath their skin, because sometimes, we have these incredible words that are written down, but they get lost in history. And there's this club where they come together, and boys who may not feel like they can, be the leading rugby player maybe, or cricketer, or, the sort of obvious things that people assume all boys will be getting up to. Then there's this incredible club where they can go in and really enjoy themselves, and led by the most amazing teacher as well. So, I think that's absolutely fantastic. They go play pigeon shooting, they play polo, they do coding and chess. I could go on and on and on. There are probably 25, 30 different clubs that the boys take part in. I think the most important thing here is that we assume sometimes that children are vessels, and we just need to fill that vessel with information and really, give them that academic input all the time. But I think if we don't widen their interests further, then we're losing an absolute, crucial chance to help to develop a boy's character. And character is everything. And if we want to take it to something that parents often worry about, if we're thinking about that next senior school entry, I speak to the senior schools all the time about the boys, and I've had boys who have incredible results on paper, but when it comes to that interview, the boys are either very shy, or they don't have enough to talk about, they don't have wide interests. And being able to talk about, when they're in kart club and they built their own kart and they raced it against each other, and, losing and winning, and those sort of fine tuning sort of moments where they made their kart a little bit faster by changing something, those sort of marginal differences, helps them to become that really sort of interesting young man who then enters the senior school. So in a strange way, even though, it's for the activity itself, they're having the best time, we're actually preparing them for the wider world as well. Not just that senior school entry, but showing them that, they have incredible capabilities that they may not have realized that they have, or they can overcome fears. Some boys don't want to hold the snakes. Some of the teachers don't want to hold the snakes. But it's those moments where they overcome those fears, or try something different, that they learn the most about themselves. So they are vital in a school like Papplewick.
What do you feel? I mean, it's an ongoing debate. You've obviously taught at an all-girls school, and then recently an all-boys school. What do you feel are the ongoing advantages of single-sex education, especially obviously at the prep stage?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it's coming under the spotlight more and more now. I think single-sex education. Some people do
We've got
question.
Westminster changing, Kings.
Yes,
I mean, there's big changes going on in London.
absolutely, absolutely, and beyond as well. Winchester and all these schools
Yeah.
that were traditionally very single-sex schools. So yes, we are asked that question more and more now. There's no doubt about that. From my experience, like I say, I've taught in co-ed schools, all girls and all boys. So I have seen, the full spectrum of schools. I think what's really important at an all boys school is that boys can be boys. They can, come in to the school and really just embrace their learning. And I think what happens sometimes in co-ed environments, you find that the children obviously when they're very little, they'll play together. So a lot of the play is activity based. So they'll come together. It doesn't matter if they're a girl and a boy, they'll come together and they'll play. But as they get older, they start to become more aware of, whether you're a girl or a boy, oh no, we play with the girls play with the girls, the boys play with the boys. So you tend to find some children shying away from activities that they would normally love to get involved with, but actually they don't feel that they can get involved with because, let's say, they're a boy looking at the girls, I don't know, reading together and sitting together. That boy may be hesitant about going to go and join those girls. In an all boys school, you don't have that. You've got your boys who want to go and sit in the library and read. You've got your boys who want to get out and get muddy and enjoy themselves, or so they're actually more willing to put themselves forward for things that are not necessarily in their comfort zone, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think that's really important in that sort of developmental phase as well of boys growing up and maturing and trying things. And prep school should be about trying things. That's the whole point of it. It's preparing you for the next part of your education. The other thing I think that is really key with single sex education in general, really, and this is true in a girls' school as well. But as a young boy entering the school, Papplewick, the youngest you can start is year 2. If you've got young boys coming in and they're seeing the older boys, the year 6 boys, 7 boys, 8 boys, if they're seeing them, leading and being role models, they want to be like them. They aspire to be like them. Then they see the year 8 boys taking up positions of responsibility. You've got your head boy and your deputy head boy and your prefects and your mentors and all sorts of different things. Those young boys can see themselves, every single position of responsibility belongs to a boy, and the potential for them to be that boy one day is huge. So you're not sharing out the responsibility, amongst half girls, half boys. It belongs to all of them. So in a way, it motivates them more because they want to be like those older boys. There are so many different things. I could go on.
Even through to drama, obviously they get
Yeah.
to play all the different roles.
Yeah.
And what do you feel beyond that? There are obviously many challenges facing boys and young men today. It's being covered a lot in the press and our magazine even. And we've previously spoken with experts such as Andrew Rayner, who's an author and lecturer at Towson University, and a partner of the International Boys School Coalition, who discussed the importance of building resilience in boys. How does Papplewick work to build these key skills such as resilience in boys from an early age?
Yeah, that's absolutely key, that resilience sort of piece that we've known about for so long, and people just assume that it's something you can, absolutely just expect of a child or teach and they will learn. There's a little bit of both in that. Some children are more resilient than others, and that's just innately within them. But equally, yes, you can teach resilience, but sometimes in focusing on that, it can make that boy who's less resilient almost become more reticent to try if the pressure is too much. So it's a really, really fine balance, I think. I think what Papplewick does incredibly well is they give the boys the opportunity to try out all these different things. So, we're talking about the clubs a minute ago. We're talking about the sort of sport within the school. If you are learning how to try something out and maybe not get it right the first time, but give it another go. So that might be, I don't know, through your rugby matches, let's say, you may not be in a team that's winning all the time, but how are you using that information that from the match that you've just played and thinking, right, what can we do differently for the next one? How can we, maybe we just need to pass sooner or not hog the ball or whatever it may be. Then that helps you to move on to that sort of next phase of actually being successful. And if you're learning from your failure, then you're growing. That's where the growth happens. And, equally in all the other clubs as well, trying something different, like I say, overcoming those fears, that really builds on that resilience. I think I was quite passionate. One question I am asked, because, I'm obviously a woman leading in a boys' school, why did you choose a boys' school? What you could have just stayed with a single-sex girls' school, and that would surely be a more natural fit. And I beg to differ. I really feel that the world at the moment, um, is looking at young men, sorry, in a way that almost lumps all of them together. And there can be a tendency in the press to almost vilify young boys, particularly teenagers coming through into adulthood. And I feel like, as a woman leading in a boys' school, I have an incredibly, rare opportunity to help these young men show the rest of the world that actually they are brilliant young men. They are, polite, kind. Yes, they make mistakes, but who doesn't? And that's what it's all about. I don't want perfect boys. I want boys who try things and get stuck in. And if I can lend my voice to that, I almost feel like it's a more powerful voice than a male head. I'm not saying male heads don't get this right. So please, don't assume for 1 minute that I think that I would be better at it. But I do think it's quite a powerful thing for a female voice to be backing up young men and saying, these boys are brilliant. Just give them an opportunity, see what they can do, and let's put some really good examples in the press. There's too much bad news out there, and I'd love for us to really change that narrative. And one newspaper at a time. Papplewick's going to try and do that.
And produce some excellent examples. In this edition, we are particularly looking at boarding schools and the future of boarding. The school website says, we are proud of having a modern, family-friendly approach to boarding, but one which still gives the boys the best possible preparation for life at their senior schools. How does boarding at Papplewick adapt to modern family life, and to the benefit of the boys and their families?
Yes, boarding for a lot of people who maybe haven't gone through a boarding school system before does feel quite alien, and we recognize that that's for some people that's their first impression of boarding, and we feel really passionately that we need to again change that narrative around that. The boys, if you see them, at Papplewick in the environment, parents, the complaint there is not, oh my goodness, we have to, put our boys in boarding. They actually say they don't want to come home. They're just having the best time. And the reason for that is because it's done so well. It's really carefully thought through. So when they first come in, boys, from all boys in years 2, 3, and 4 are day boys, so they come and go as normal, to their homes. And some of those boys will catch the London buses that bring them up to Berkshire, and others live more locally. From the end of year 4, so starting year 5 and into year 6, boys are then able to do flexi boarding, so they can choose as many times a week that they would like to board. Now, some boys go straight in and they do every night because logistically for their family that works. Others just do little trials here and there, and build it up. But most boys would tend to board, 3 or 4 nights a week, in the build up to the end of year 6. So the final term of year 6, the summer term of year 6, all boys then become full boarders. And the reason that we do this is because so many parents say, they want their boys to go into senior schools where they are going to be boarders. And for many of them, that is every night a week. They don't really have a lot of senior schools where there's flexi boarding. So they really need to build that up in an environment that's safe, that's nurturing, where they are known already, where we can put activities on that are really centered around the age of the boys. Because if their first experience of boarding is senior school, they are the youngest in the school, and they've got all these older boys, right up to 18, where it's really quite daunting. And typically they are often quite far away from home as well. So that even if, it's just a sort of psychological distance for the boys, they find that really quite difficult. Whereas for a lot of the boys, they know home is just down the road when they board with us. Parents will come into the school. So we have this incredible, I think it's one of the real USPs of Papplewick. The community is so important. So parents come and go a lot of the time. They come and watch matches. On a Saturday, they come into the school and they come to chapel, and it's, it's sort of standing room only. It's really so popular. And the brilliant thing that I absolutely love, that I haven't seen at any other school, is those parents are then invited to have lunch with their sons every Saturday morning. Sorry, afternoon, I suppose. It's lunchtime. And then they, have that lovely family sort of, service where everyone's in together. They've just sung heartily in the chapel, and wow, is that singing hearty, by the way. Then they go and have their hearty lunch with their parents, and then they go to their matches, Saturday matches. So the whole day is centered around the family. And all those boys who've boarded the whole week, they look forward to that. The parents can't wait for it. The feel-good factor in the school is off the charts. And what a brilliant way to end a week on a high with all the family together. And as a parent of 3 children who board as well, there's just nothing nicer. There's nothing more special than seeing your child happy in situ. You as a parent are involved in that school. You're welcome to the school. It is just incredible. And Papplewick, I genuinely have not seen another school do it as well as Papplewick do.
And then beyond that, well-being is a crucial part of school life, especially as a boarding school. How do you support boys' well-being at Papplewick, particularly for those who may be spending time away from home? And as you've just said, sometimes this will be for the first time that they're doing it.
Yeah. I think the key here is that Papplewick is a community. So 2/3 of the staff live on site, which again in itself is quite rare. So often in a school where there is boarding, you'll find you have your sort of core boarding staff and the rest of the staff go off site. 2/3 of the staff live there with their families as well. So it has that wonderful family feel to it. And I think so that makes the boys relax into the environment. It kind of feels like home from home for them. They've obviously got their house parents within their boarding houses. So they, build a really, really close bond with their house parents. But, the same in any school, it's very much, find that teacher, find that person, that member of staff that you feel you can go and talk to if you have a problem. That's really spoken about a lot. And actually, we have sort of gap students and staff who are on site doing, grounds work. Everybody is part of the community. So it's not only go and find a teacher. Everyone's trained up in how to help boys with that sort of pastoral support. And I think that is a real strength of the school as well. The overwhelming sort of response I've had from members of staff when I've been into the school a number of times now to go and, for various reasons, everybody says, wow, this is the best body of staff they have ever worked with. And I think because the staff are cohesive and really joined up in their thinking, that, really filters through to the boys as well. So, those boys know who they can talk to. And as I say, if you come to the school, they are happy boys. They really are. When on Saturday when I was there for open morning, again, that's the one thing that comes back from parents. Wow, these boys are happy. Gosh, I can see my son here. And I think that speaks for itself. But there is also a sort of formal tracking system as well. So we use something called Steer, which I know a lot of schools use as well. And that's just a check-in to see if there are certain elements where maybe a boy is a little reticent to go and find somebody to talk to or hesitant to do that. Then we have the ability to do that at sort of more formal junctures as well. It's very confidential, but we can work out roughly where that boy is. So we'll know the year group he's in, and then maybe we can put some support in place for the whole year group. So there's lots of different ways that that's done, buddying systems, all of those things. Again, there's so much I could talk about, which just really lends itself to that well-being.
And beyond Papplewick, which is another thing that parents increasingly are looking at, boys progress to top schools across the country, including over 60 to Eton, 20 to Harrow and Winchester in the last 5 years, amongst many other top schools. How does Papplewick prepare boys to succeed in the competitive senior school admissions process and support them and prepare them for senior school life?
Yeah. I think it comes back to what I was talking about earlier. Those boys are so well known to the staff. So, if there's a little area where they need a little bit more support or extension, whatever it is, that the staff are on it straight away. The boys are in school for, a long period of their long time in their day, because sport is put into the middle of the day. So they will have lessons, play a bit of sport, then come back and do lessons. And often those lessons with the older boys can go on till 6 o'clock at night. So they really are immersed in their learning, but they're balancing it out with, this sport, with music and drama and all sorts of different things. I think that the staff really understand what's needed as well, what's required for those senior schools. So they are, if they see a gap or they see a child who's maybe not reaching that point where they need to be, then they will put interventions in really quickly. It's a school that's placed boys into these incredible senior schools for so many years. The relationships with the senior schools are brilliant. And so many heads come to chapel on Saturday to come and talk in chapel. So they get to know Papplewick as well. We, as heads, I know Tom Bunbury visits many schools, and I certainly have done in my previous roles and fully intend to do the same. Those relationships are absolutely key, because when we go through that process of placing boys into these senior schools, I pick up the phone, as does Tom Bunbury, and have conversations with registrars, heads of admissions, head teachers, and we really, because we know those boys so well, we can say to them, look, this is the child that you're going to be getting. On paper, it reads as one way, but let me bring that to life for you. And I think, it's a combination of the teachers working incredibly well with the boys in the classroom, the boys knowing exactly what's needed of them, and then the senior staff being able to have those critical conversations with the senior schools and understanding the different routes into whether that's scholarship, King Scholars, or the Winchester election, whatever it may be. We as a school are so well placed to give those boys the best opportunity. And a lot of parents move their boys to Papplewick because we are known for that. And I always say to parents, isn't it wonderful? Because we haven't lost childhood along the way. We still have these boys who have this incredible, childhood, and yet look at these incredible results because we are balancing it out absolutely perfectly. It's no coincidence. And sometimes it looks easy. Sometimes, a good school will make it look easy, and that's right. But it's so carefully planned. It's so carefully and strategically thought through to get the best results for these boys. And it's a formula that works.
Very clearly. Finally, obviously, you've got to start in September, but what are you kind of looking to do for the future for Papplewick School?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because, I'm sitting in a position where I obviously have known the school for many years. I've been, offered this wonderful job. And so, of course, my brain is starting to tick over. I think what I will definitely do, I need to go in and get my feet under the desk first. I think I would be absolutely foolish to go in and say, right, we're doing X, Y, and Z, and this is, the new vision for Papplewick. Papplewick works. It's a school that has been run brilliantly. Tom Bunbury is leaving it in fantastic shape. So again, I would be a fool to think that, Nina Kingsmill Moore should come in and change everything. That's absolutely not what is going to be happening. But there will be tweaks. There always are. New eyes see different things, and education moves on. So what I'll be doing is looking for areas where we can make those improvements. And whether that's on the pastoral side or the academic side, I don't actually have the answer to that question at the moment. So my plan is to come in, spend time in the classroom. I need to critically get to know those older boys who are moving, into the next phase of their education. So particularly the year 6 boys who will be doing their ISEB tests in that first term that I start. So I'll be spending time in the classrooms, getting to know them, spending time getting to know the teachers as well, and really trying to get under the skin of the school. There are certain areas that, we can look at. There's a little bit of tidying up here and there that could take place. But what we don't want to do is lose that lovely ethos of Papplewick. So, parents often say, oh, are you coming to completely refurbish and paint and make it all shiny? No, because Papplewick's not about that. Papplewick's about, that sort of everyone getting stuck in. and making sure that, you know, whether that means that there's the skirting board's a little scuffed, that means the boys have been having a great time. So, you know, I think educationally, one of the things I've been thinking about is we often cater so incredibly well for the boys who need support and maybe, you know, that little bit extra. And we work really hard with the boys who need that extension, and that might be through scholarship sets, which I know Papplewick have in year 7 and 8. But are we doing everything we can for those boys, you know, in the middle, where sometimes they can be overlooked because there's too much focus on either end, and so that's one of the areas I am, you know, going to be looking at. I'll look at the data, yeah, I'll look at the academic data, I'll look at the pastoral data, because those two correlate. You know, if one side goes down, the other invariably will dip as well. So I just want to make sure we're tracking the boys in the way that, you know, gives us the information that might not be obvious, but when we see it in data, then we go, here's a boy we hadn't spotted, let's work with him as well. So it's about getting to know those individual children. And I've asked for photographs of every boy and every member of staff, and I'm going to be playing Who's Who, looking to see which. So I'm hoping to be able to have some names in my sort of toolbox when I first get there, and really, you know, when they welcome me, because obviously I'm one person to welcome, I'm hoping I'll be able to say, hello, you know, Isaac, or whoever it may be, and let's see.
It sounds like it's going to be a very exciting time, and I will very much look forward to coming and seeing you, of course.
Absolutely. Well, honestly, I'm going to hold you to that, Chloe, because
No, I really
would love
will.
you
I
to.
really will.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
And I hope that we get to speak again soon.
Me too. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to see you again. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the amazing Papplewick.